Please, my son hasn't eaten since yesterday." The words trembled in the cold evening air as Marlowe crouched beside the small boy, huddled against the diner's brick wall. His name was Finn, she'd learned, 4 years old, with eyes too old for his age and cheeks hollowed by hunger. "Hey there, sweetheart," Marlowe whispered, her voice catching. "Would you like something warm to eat?" Finn nodded, silent tears trailing down his face. His mother, Rebecca, looked away, shame burning in her expression. "I'm sorry, we lost everything last month. I've been looking for work, but no one will watch him, and I can't afford—" "Don't apologize." Marlowe's hand found the woman's trembling fingers. "Wait here." Inside Bernie's diner, the fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune. Marlowe had worked these floors for 6 years, every shift a battle against exhaustion and bills that never stopped coming. But tonight, watching that little boy shiver, nothing else mattered. She moved through the kitchen with quiet purpose, assembling a plate of meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and green beans. She added extra rolls, a chocolate milk, and wrapped a slice of apple pie to go. "Marlowe," Bernie's voice cut through the kitchen clatter. "What are you doing?" Her hands stilled. "There's a child outside, Mr. Bernie. He's hungry." "And who's paying for that food?" "I will. Take it from my paycheck." Bernie's face hardened. "You know the rules. We can't just give away—" "He's 4 years old," her voice cracked, but she held his gaze. "I'll work extra shifts, I'll stay late, but I'm not letting that baby go hungry when I can help." The silence stretched thin and dangerous. "Then you're fired." The words landed like stones. Marlowe's breath caught, but she didn't argue. She simply picked up the plate and walked out the back door. What she didn't know was that someone had been watching. Finn ate slowly, savoring each bite like it was treasure. Rebecca cried quietly, trying to thank Marlowe through her tears, but Marlowe just sat with them on the cold pavement, her own heart breaking and healing simultaneously. "Why did you help us?" Rebecca finally asked. "You don't even know us." Marlowe smiled softly. "My mama used to say that kindness doesn't need a reason. It just needs a moment and a willing heart." Across the parking lot, partially obscured by shadow, a man stood beside a sleek black car. 33 years old, dressed in an expensive coat that seemed out of place in this worn-down neighborhood, he'd stopped for coffee and witnessed everything. His name was Fletcher Morrison, and 3 days earlier he'd been named CEO of Morrison Hospitality Group, a chain that owned 47 restaurants across 6 states, including Bernie's Diner. He'd come tonight unannounced, wanting to see the reality of his company's locations without the polish of a scheduled visit. Now, watching this young woman sacrifice her job for a hungry child, something shifted in his chest. 2 weeks crawled by. Marlowe survived on savings that evaporated too quickly, sending out applications that vanished into silence. Some nights she stood outside Bernie's Diner, watching through the windows, missing the rhythm of work, the purpose it gave her days. She never regretted feeding Finn, not once. Then the call came. "Miss Marlowe Reed, this is Jennifer from Morrison Hospitality Group. We'd like to invite you for an interview at our corporate headquarters." Marlowe's hands shook as she wrote down the address. Hope felt dangerous, but she couldn't stop it from blooming. The headquarters towered above the city, all glass and steel and impossible dreams. Marlowe smoothed her best dress, modest, a little worn, and stepped inside. She was led to an office on the 20th floor, where floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like a painting. Behind the desk sat Fletcher Morrison, though she didn't know his name yet. "Miss Reed, please sit." His voice was gentle, almost careful. Marlowe perched on the edge of the chair, confusion and nervousness tangling in her throat. "I'm confused," she admitted. "Why am I here?" Fletcher leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. "2 weeks ago, outside Bernie's diner, you fed a hungry child. You lost your job for it." The blood drained from her face. I didn't think anyone saw." "I did. I was there, conducting an unannounced visit. I watched you choose compassion over security. Do you know how rare that is?" Tears pricked her eyes. He was just a little boy." "And you were just a waitress making $9 an hour, barely surviving yourself." Fletcher's voice grew thick with emotion. "But you saw someone who needed help, and you helped. No hesitation, no conditions, just pure, instinctive kindness." The silence held weight and meaning. "I fired Bernie, not for having rules, but for forgetting what those rules should serve: people, humanity, connection." He slid a folder across the desk. "I want to offer you a position as our new Community Outreach Director. You'll develop programs to help struggling families, food insecurity initiatives, employee compassion training. Salary is $60,000 annually, full benefits, and autonomy to build something meaningful." Marlowe couldn't breathe. I'm not qualified. I'm just..." "You're exactly what we need. Someone who understands what it means to be hungry, to struggle, to choose kindness anyway." Fletcher's eyes held steady, sincere. "I've spent my whole life in boardrooms, learning strategy and profit margins. But watching you that night taught me something no business school ever could: that the measure of a company isn't its revenue, but its heart." Tears spilled over. "Why me?" "Because when the world asked you to choose between your survival and a stranger suffering, you chose love. And that's the rarest, most valuable thing in this world." Six months later, Marlowe stood in Bernie's diner, now transformed into a community center called Finn's Table, offering free meals, job training, and childcare for struggling families. The old booths remained, but now they held hope instead of desperation. Rebecca worked in the kitchen, finally stable, finally safe. Finn attended the on-site preschool, his laughter echoing through halls that once knew only exhaustion. Fletcher visited often, usually quietly, watching the miracle Marlowe had built from one simple act of kindness. On this particular evening, he found her in the kitchen, preparing meals for the next day's service. "You've changed everything," he said softly. Marlowe turned, flower on her cheek, joy in her eyes. "No, I just remembered what my mama taught me, that kindness doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to start." Fletcher smiled, something tender and wondering in his expression. "I used to think success meant building empires, but you taught me it means building bridges between people, between pain and hope, between who we are and who we could be if we just chose to care." She stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. "You gave me a chance when the world said I was foolish. That's its own kind of courage." "Maybe we both needed saving," Fletcher whispered. As the evening light filtered through the windows, painting everything gold and gentle, they stood together in the space that kindness built. Two people who'd learned that the smallest acts of love could change everything. Outside, children played in the small garden they'd planted. Inside, families shared meals and laughter and the quiet miracle of being seen, being valued, being fed. And in that moment, Marlowe understood what her mother had always known, that kindness is never wasted, never small, never meaningless. It ripples outward, touching lives in ways we cannot measure, building worlds we cannot imagine, until suddenly, impossibly, beautifully, everything has changed. "Thank you," Fletcher said, his voice barely audible, "for reminding me what matters." Marlowe's hand found his, warm and steady. "Thank you for believing that kindness deserves a chance." In the end, that's all any of us need. Someone to believe that our compassion matters, that our hearts aren't foolish, that choosing love over logic is the bravest thing we'll ever do. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, subscribe.